Thanks, Bob. And thank you for having me today. And I'm really happy to be here because as doing this job in higher education, it's not just about what we're doing at Marywood, but it's about what we're doing at schools across Pennsylvania and across the country. So it's really important to take what's working and try to implement that at other schools. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, and I told Bob that today multiple times. And anything that we're doing that's working, feel free to take it and use it. I don't want to hold on to things and not let it get out, because it's stuff that's working should be out there at other places too. So I'm going to try to give you a snapshot of what we're doing, and feel free at the end to think of any questions you might have, and I'll do my best to answer those for you. Again, I'm Lauren Williams, Director of Military and Veteran Services at Marywood University. The office was created in April of 2012. We're 14 now, yeah. It feels like I've been there for 5 years, it's only been 2. But it was created in April of 2012 to advocate for student veterans on campus to help them both get enrolled at the university and then through graduation and for job placement after. And it's been a very exciting 2 years. So I'm going to show you what we've done that's worked for us over the last 2 years. I'm also going to talk to you a little bit about the Veterans Knowledge Community and definitely try to get involved with that if you have not done so already. It's part of NASPA, the Student Affairs Organization. Are people familiar with that organization? So if you're a member, individual or part of the institution, it's a simple click of a button. I'm going to show you how to do that. So the NASPA Veterans Knowledge Community, the vision and mission and commitment is all here. Really the goal is to advance veterans' best practices through education and activation of its members. So anyone that's doing my job at universities and colleges throughout the country are very active in the veterans' knowledge community. We are changing a lot about that, and it's in a few slides, but we want you to get involved with this because it's going to keep you in the know about what's going on, not just at Marywood University, but at universities throughout Pennsylvania and throughout the nation. Members communicate at local, regional, and national NASPA meetings and at other veteran meetings as time allows. We're very active with the Department of Veterans Affairs, IAVA, Student Veterans of America, and we just want to make sure we utilize technology. So everything's done via the web. There's blogs, there's newsletters and things like that. So definitely get involved with that if you have not done so. The Vkc Leadership Roster, this kind of explains how the VKC works. So we have a national chair of the Veterans Knowledge Community, and his name is David Vkc, and he's a doctoral candidate at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. So he's our chair, and then every region, and there's 6 regions, have their own Veterans Knowledge Community representative. That's what I do in Region 2. And our point is to be able to share information and get that information out. So you can be added to the listserv and you can get all that information every time something goes out. Bkc Best Practices. So this is what, we're going to be changing some of these, but this is what we're saying to universities that should be their best practices based on the Veterans Knowledge Community. So priority registration for classes. We don't have that at Marywood. None of our student athletes don't get priority registration. Do they at Bloomsburg? Okay. So if your student athletes have priority registration, your veterans should have priority registration. That's the argument you want to use when you go to whoever makes that decision on your campus. Just like student athletes need to be able to get ahead of the rest of the students to get their classes so it doesn't interfere with their sports-related activities, student veterans have a certain amount of benefits and months of benefits that they have to use before it expires or they run out to graduate on time. So it's important for them to get into the classes that they need so that they can maximize the benefits that the VA gives to them to use for school. Priority enrollment for transfer student veterans. That's another one that's kind of tricky. We have transfer days. That's priority enrollment for all individuals that are transferring to the university. So it's good to have those in place at your school. Moving a school certifying official position from an administrative position to a student affairs position. That's a big one. And we talked about that a lot this morning as well. The certifying official is so important to the success of the veteran because they're directly involved with the benefits that they're using, and without those benefits, most of them would be going to school. So the certifying official needs to be constantly in communication with the director or the program coordinator of the veterans office on campus. So by moving that role from the registrar's office to being something that's part of the veterans office, it's really where that person belongs. Implementation of assessment measures for veteran services on all campuses. We need to be assessing what's working and what's not working. So tracking your veteran success rate, retention, graduation rates. That should be happening on all campuses to see if what we're doing is working. Integration of veterans issues into student government organizations. Is the Vet Club recognized by student government?
We are.
Okay, so getting a student veteran into student government is also not a bad idea. That way it gets all of your issues to the forefront of the student issues on campus. Veterans are natural born leaders, so why not give them a venue to really do well? So get them, motivate one of your vets to get into student government, and that way it gets your voice heard on campus in a much larger forum. So this is some updates on it. We currently, if you've ever been on the website, it's not the easiest website to navigate. That's all being updated over the next couple of months, so don't be scared away from it. Come back to it eventually. So we're asking for people that are interested in blogging. So if anybody sees anything that I'm talking about today and they want to get more involved with veterans issues, but maybe it's not their position on campus, definitely reach out to me, because we can get you involved through the veterans knowledge community. And that's something, again, that's seen on a national level. It's not a bad idea if you are interested in doing something. We are going to continue to host, we're going to be starting this, we were doing it before, but we're going to host webinars. We're going to try to do them once a quarter, and it's going to be on veteran-related issues. So, for example, say you don't have a mobilization policy on your campus. That's a policy that ensures that if a veteran or a National Guard reservist is called up to active duty and they need to withdraw from the institution to serve on a deployment, there's a policy in place to protect them. If you don't have that in place, or you have one in place and you want to revise it, we're going to be doing a webinar on how to revise a mobilization policy on your campus so that it works to fit the needs of your population. We're going to do a webinar on measuring and graduation rates, tracking graduation and retention rates. So again, definitely get involved with this because it's going to benefit you. There's a Veteran Symposium for Higher Education that runs every year. Normally it ran out of the University of Louisville. It usually runs like President's Day week in February. We're going to try to keep doing that, but NASPA took that over this year, and now it's going to be a NASPA Symposium for Veterans Education. It's the premier symposium to attend in the country if you're working with veterans, so it's definitely something to think about going to, building it into your budgets for next year. It's a great conference, and it's really a good way for people who have never had the experience to come in and learn some things, but to also expand on your knowledge that you already have. And then we have a LinkedIn group. So if you're part of LinkedIn, please feel free to join that LinkedIn group. We share a lot of really great information on that as well. Veterans Knowledge Community. It's a subgroup of NASPA. And again, I'm trying to build up a task force for Region 2. So if you're interested in getting involved with anything with the NASPA Veterans Knowledge Community, please let me know at the end and I can get you some good contact information. How to join? You go into your NASPA user profile. And this is the process for that. Again, if anyone has any specific questions on that, you can get to me. I don't want to take up too much time with this. But please consider joining. It's a really great network of individuals. And that's the website down the bottom there if everybody can see it. So these are my best practices. This is what I've seen work for me, and this is what the message I try to get across at presentations like this. The first thing is the application question, is changing that on the application. Most schools ask, are you a veteran? It's not the right way to ask the question on the application. You miss a lot of individuals that don't consider themselves a veteran. Combat veterans, non-combat veterans sometimes don't label themselves a veteran. Spouses and dependents aren't going to label themselves as a veteran. National Guard reservists most likely aren't going to label themselves as a veteran. And active duty service members are surely not going to label themselves as a veteran. But for benefits purposes and the question we're really trying to find out the answer to, we want to know all of that. So are you currently or have you ever been affiliated with the U.S. military is really the best way to ask that question on the application. And then a series of questions would follow underneath that. An introduction email, reaching out to the veterans on campus and letting them know who you are, and especially if you're somebody who's an ally on campus, your certifying official has the contact information for your veterans. Let her know, or let Bob know that you maybe are putting on an event and you want to be able to invite them. Your most likely not going to reach them if you do a generic email out to the whole campus, because I'm sure your emails get inundated, your email inboxes get inundated. So they're probably going to just delete it. But if you go through the certifying official, your chances of them opening up that email are going to be a little bit better. So if you're doing something specifically for veterans, go that route. Campus event, that's an event we had on our campus. We placed over 6,700 flags on campus for Veterans Day. Each flag represented a fallen service member from Iraq and Afghanistan. It went viral. We had a lot of community support for that. We're doing it. We did 2 years in a row. We're going to do it again this year. It's a great way to get the whole entire campus involved and to rally around what you're trying to do on campus. The campus took pride in that display. The students took pride in it. You know, you would see these students walking through fixing flags and straightening flags up. Not one got stolen. I think that says something about what we're trying to do. And it gets our message across on campus. A lot of people think the war is over. Yes, it's coming to an end, but it's not over. And there's still men and women that are dying. So it's important to make sure the campus understands that it's still out there and why we have these offices in place on campus. Faculty staff training is another really important one. Faculty and staff need to understand how to work with veterans on campus. It's not enough to just have a veterans lounge or a Bob or a Lauren on campus. You have to make sure the whole campus understands the culture. And in all fairness, the veteran needs to understand that there's changes that happen when you assimilate back to a campus. It's a process for everybody to go through. But faculty and staff have to just have a basic knowledge and understanding of the unique needs that these individuals bring with them when they're transitioning back. And then establishing a veterans club on campus. That's something that you've already done here. It's really great to do that, and stick with it. Sometimes veterans clubs, they get up and they get going, and there's a lot of help and support behind it, and then it dies off a little bit. Just don't let it die off. Make sure that you're constantly finding the next president. When those freshmen and sophomore students come in, start getting them excited to be a part of the club, and then build them up to be your future president of the club. It's something that takes time to really learn how to keep it going. So this is our Marywood student veteran population, so you can kind of see what our veterans look like. All of our veterans are commuter students. None of them live on campus. It's not in their best interest to live on campus. It's expensive. So if they want to maximize their housing allowance, they're going to live off campus, and most of them have families. So we're not really equipped to have spouses and children on campus, so they live off campus. Student veterans were asked to respond to a short 10-question survey. I did this back right when I first started because I wanted to find out what our student vet population looked like. If you haven't done it, it's a good idea to just kind of quick 10-question survey monkey. Most important demographic information that I needed to know. This helps me for grants and things like that too. So the largest group attending Marywood are those that are single and male. 40% are single and male. 70% of those surveyed have an annual household income of under $25,000. So it's very low. They're really surviving off of the housing allowance they're getting to go to school through the post 9/11 GI Bill. 23% are aged 30 to 34, with the second largest group from 21 to 24 and 25 to 29. So 21 to 34, that's our biggest age group. We have a lot of veterans that are in their late 20s, early 30s. They're not the traditional age student. It's important to understand that. 42% are currently employed. 70% are undergraduate students taking 12 credits or more each semester. So most of our vets are undergrad, and they're going full-time. I don't think I have any undergraduate going part-time, and I've got about 30 graduate students right now, and they range part-time to full-time. So this is how the office is staffed, and this is the description of what my office does. So we're the primary liaison between student veterans and the rest of the campus. The director serves as the VA certifying official and the advisor for the SVO, Student Veteran Organization. Through this close partnership, we're able to bring student veteran needs to the forefront of the campus community to ensure our voice is heard both within student life and academic affairs. My office falls under academic affairs. It's split amongst universities. Some of our offices fall under student life, some of our student affairs, and some of them fall under academic affairs. I kind of fit in both places because I do enrollment and recruiting and admissions things, but I also advocate for my veteran on campus, and that's the student life part. It's a constant conversation that we have. I don't really have, I think it belongs in both places. So it would be nice because then we can get budget money from both places if they would just say we could have both places. So our total student population is 3267. Student veteran enrollment, this was as of the beginning of the spring semester. 32 veterans, 18 dependents, undergrad, 31 veterans graduate, 1 dependent for graduate. Using benefits. If you are not using benefits, I have no real way of tracking you. We are now doing better with that tracking system, and that's because of changing the application question. So we ask them if they're using benefits now on the application as well. If they select no, I can reach out to them and find out, well, why aren't you using benefits? Maybe they do have a benefit available to them. If they don't, I can still track them. Because before we didn't know who, if you weren't using benefits, we didn't even know you were a veteran on campus. And up to 2 years ago, we didn't even know who the veterans were on campus using benefits. So it's a constant learning curve. This is how my office is staffed. I'm the full-time director, 35 hours a week. I have 6 veteran-affiliated work-study students. They work a maximum of 25 hours per week. 1 federal work-study student, 1 graduate assistant, 1 MSW intern, MSW is Master's of Social Work, 1 AmeriCorps PAC Vista volunteer. So I'm essentially completely staffed by students. So my VA work-study students are veterans, very capable of doing the job. I've got an excellent staff. I'm trying to figure out how to pay them more money because they should be making more based on the work that they're doing than $7.25 an hour. Unfortunately for right now, that's all I've got, but I'm in the process of changing that. The PAC Vista volunteer through AmeriCorps, they work on a specific program, so it limits me on what I can use, and that's a hired out position. But that's how we staff it. Look for interns, which we now have a BSW intern here. Try to work with the different departments to have internship placement, because you're going to get quality work from the interns, especially if they're graduate students. So again, this is more about the office. We help them navigate their benefits, provide assistance with the application and enrollment process, and that continues through to graduation. I have a jobs email that I send out. I think we've had 10 veterans get jobs off the jobs emails that go out to the students. People in the community send me job postings. I send them out to my veterans, and then they apply for the jobs. We serve as the student veterans advocate on campus. If I can't answer a question, I'm going to tell them who can answer the question for them. I'm not going to say, hey, sorry, I don't have the answer to that. Good luck. I'm going to get them on the phone with somebody at the VA or somebody at some place in the community, and we're going to get them an answer to the question that they have. We provide admission and financial aid assistance. I provided a lot of this information to Bob earlier that he can replicate here. Checklists on FAFSA, on what you need to do when you're applying to the school, different support services that are available. It's just important to provide that information. And then we also assist dependents that are using benefits. So campus partnerships. We are very visible at the open houses. It's really important to have a table there. We might only get 1 or 2 students that come by, but that's still 1 or 2 more students than we would have not had if we weren't there. We have a little sign-in sheet. So a lot of the times I'll send the work studies to the open house because they're very capable of working the open house, and they leave their contact information for me. So if I have a student that's thinking about they're going to be receiving transfer benefits from their mother or their father who served, I can start reaching out to them from that point, even if they're a junior in high school, to make sure that they get their benefit transferred to them before their mother or father separates from service. There's so many guidelines and rules that go along with using benefits through the government and through the military. So they need, if I'm one person that can answer that question for them, we might save them the disappointment of not actually getting the benefit because the military is a rumor mill. So one person has one benefit and 5 other veterans think they have the same benefit, when in reality they might, each one of them have a different benefit. So it's important to get that information out. Counseling Center, we work very closely with the Counseling Center in multiple ways. I recently had a veteran who admitted herself into alcohol, 21-day inpatient alcohol rehab at the VA. Comes to my office. I'm not a counselor, but I can get her down to our Counseling Center, and they can start working with DATs. And then DATs can get in contact with the VA. So we all work together. The VA, sometimes you won't get an appointment for counseling once every 3 weeks or once a month. And for someone that needs counseling services more frequently and more consistently, you need to be seen once a week. That's normal. Well, you can't be seen once a week at the VA in most cases. I'd say in like 95% of cases, you're not going to get an appointment once a week. They're understaffed and they have too many individuals using the services. So our counseling center is equipped to handle these, and it's free counseling services for all students. Is that what happens here as well? Okay. Yeah? Okay. So what we do is, the veteran says they want more frequent counseling services. So they talk to their social worker or counselor at the VA. The VA can then create a treatment plan with our counseling center, so they're seen once a week by either the VA or by the counseling center, and they're working together to make sure that they have a treatment plan in process. It's not that difficult to do. It's just important that there's a point person that can help connect all of those ends. If I wasn't there, they probably wouldn't know that that was even an option for them. So it's important to have that point person there that can answer these questions. And it's free. That doesn't cost money for anybody. That costs nothing. Campus ministry. We do partnerships with campus ministry. We're a Catholic university. I don't really need to get into all that. Counseling Honor Society. A lot of the clubs and counseling, or the honor societies, tend to work with us. We do fundraisers. We're very good at fundraising. Our veterans are very motivated. We just raised $12,000 at a fundraiser. We're good at it. So these other honor societies and clubs, they want to get involved. We'll welcome them because that means more volunteers to help us run the events on campus and off campus. Student activities, orientation. We now have our own orientation. Are you working on that? Okay. That's really important. Student vets don't need to be at orientation hitting around a beach ball and hugging and kissing and getting to know everybody. They just want to come to campus and know what they need to do to start on day one. So we've changed it. We never had that. Last fall was our first orientation. We'll have another one this fall. 3 weeks before the start of the semester. It's a couple hours. We give them free lunch. We bring them in. We show them where their classrooms are. Like, they bring their schedule to us, and our current student veterans match up with them. It develops a friendship immediately. So camaraderie starts to build right from 3 weeks before the semester starts. They get a campus tour. They talk to some of the different offices on campus. Our student veteran club has a panel where they can ask questions of what it's like going to school at Marywood. And then again, they essentially, lock arms and jump and run off into the sunset together, and they figure out everything on campus together. We don't need a mentorship program, a formalized mentorship program. Some schools have them in place. We don't need one at Marywood. It happens on its own because we have other things in place that allow that to happen on its own. And that orientation is really important. And then I'm obviously at regular orientation as well. And I have a table and a session set up where people can come and ask me questions about different things. And the School of Social Work and Administrative Studies, I work closely with them. They give me an MSW intern every semester. Well, for the year, I get one for the whole year. Right now, our intern is working on developing a resource manual of both campus resources and community resources that will then go on our website. Not a bad idea, Bob, to do that with yours when they come in. And that's going to have information about financial assistance. So say you lose your job, or it's your first semester in school, you've got 3 kids, you're having a problem paying rent or your heat bill or your electric bill. Well, this manual is going to tell you who you can contact in our community to get some financial assistance with that. So there's all different types of resources that are out there, and we're going to put it all together in one place. And that's, okay, so let's make it a little bit interactive. Anybody have an example of a partnership that might currently exist on campus here at Bloomsburg, or one that, based on some of the stuff you've learned already, you can try to implement? Don't all jump out.
Well, I noticed that on the previous slide you talked about faculty and staff training, but on this one you don't have anything that's indicating that you're partnered with like a resource center for faculty or anything like that.
That's because faculty is the most difficult department / office / group on campus to penetrate. It's very hard to make things mandatory for faculty. at the end of this slide, you'll see some of the faculty training that we do at the end of this presentation. But since I've started 2 years ago, I've only been in front of faculty one time. I have Beyond G.I. Joe. It's a conference that runs at Marywood. I had not one faculty member show up to that 2-day conference. So it is very difficult, but I'm working with our Vice President for Academic Affairs right now to try to figure out how I can make it mandatory. It's not enough, and I got in front of new faculty. New faculty usually aren't the issue. For us, it's more of our tenured faculty who've been there for a very long time, and they're the ones that need to understand what's going on with this particular group when they're transitioning back. So, try your best to get the faculty to buy into this, but for us, it's just been very difficult. And I know it's difficult at a lot of different schools.
What about approaching faculty that are veterans themselves?
That's your best way to get in, and that's what we did. At the new faculty training, I put sign-up sheets at every single table and asked faculty to self-disclose. So even if they weren't a veteran or a dependent, or some people said my father was a Vietnam veteran and this and that, and they signed up and they selected if they would like to learn more about working with veterans. That was a good way for us to then reach out to those veterans who are on campus and get them more involved. But again, it's all up to them to self-disclose that. Unfortunately, we can't really go to human resources and say, hey, who checked veteran on their application? But we're trying, we're doing everything we can. But that's one area that's very, very difficult. But definitely use sign-up sheets for things like that to get them to self-disclose. So we have a student vet club on campus. It's our Student Veteran Alliance. We provide military veterans and their families with advocacy and resources necessary to support their successful transition into and through Marywood University with the ultimate goal of employment after graduation. Very similar to the Office of Military and Veteran Services description that I read before. We work very, very, very closely. I'm the advisor for the club. Most of my officers are work studies for the office, so we're doing things together constantly. It works that way. We're going to continue to do it that way. You just have to be careful when it's a club and an office when it needs to be separate. But we're a big family, so we probably aren't always following the rules that the university wants us to follow, but in this type of a group, it's not so black and white. There's a lot of gray area, and you want to be able to retain the veterans at the end of the day. So we do everything we can to try to do that. We currently have 75 chapter members. We have a lot of veterans that are club members, but we have a lot of campus students that are just traditional students that are members as well. It's open to everybody. Just the officers must be a veteran in order to run for office. We're an official chapter of Student Veterans America. Your Bloomsburg University Veterans Club is also an official chapter. It allows us to do a lot. So if you haven't used the resources that are out there, get on that website and use them. There's money, lots of money, and opportunities for the veterans through that Student Veterans of America. We have monthly meetings off campus to generate support. We usually go to a local pub, and that's where we congregate, and it works out well. But we also have family events. It's really important because a lot of our veterans have families. So we go to the pumpkin patch in the fall semester, we have a Christmas party. We do things like that too to keep the families involved. Military family is so important to the success of the service member when they're serving. I think it's just as important to the veteran when they get out, to their successful transition back into civilian society. So we try to use that. So here are some programs that we've put in place at Marywood, and they've worked, so it's programs to consider. The VA Work Study Program, you don't have that yet, right? That's the biggest one. There's this assumption that you have to have a certain number of veterans per VA work study. It's incorrect. I have 6 VA work study positions that I can fill, and I have 70 veterans. So it's not like 1 for every 10, 1 for every 100. You ask for what you need, and then they tell you if they're going to give it to you or not. I'm trying to up it from 6 to 8 because we're moving into a house on campus. Marywood's giving us a house. So we're going to need to be able to staff that house so that there's always somebody in there. And I'm going to need more students for that. So I'm going to try to move it from 6 to 8. It's a great opportunity. Any student that's going 3/4 time to full time under an education benefit through the university is eligible to apply. It's $7.25 an hour, but it's not taxable. So they're actually making more than that. It's about $362 every 2 weeks, every 50 hours they work, essentially. So it's helpful for those veterans. So I fill all 6 slots every semester. I couldn't before because I didn't have the applications. Now I'm getting 10 for 6 slots because it's such a good opportunity for them. And they're getting real life work experience because they're doing things for the office. Student veteran orientation, I mentioned that. That works out well for us. We're going to keep doing that. Salute Veterans National Honor Society. We have an honor society on campus. We just had our induction 2 weeks ago. And that recognizes any veteran who honorably served and meets the minimum GPA standard. There's an undergraduate and a graduate component to that. So then I get to give my veterans red, white, and blue honor cords that they use at graduation. We want to recognize them for their service and for their academic achievements as well. Now we're trying to get a coin. That's our next thing. The challenge, the coins are really important in the military. A lot of schools are starting to create these coins. And so we're going to try to develop a Marywood coin. So that's another, I don't know how expensive that'll be, so we'll see if we get that approved or not. I convinced the president of the university that it was her idea. So we'll see how that works for us. Beyond G.I. Joe, that's our conference that we host. I host that every year at Marywood. I think we're actually going to move it to the Allentown area next year so that we can hit more schools in Philadelphia and Allentown. It's a 2-day conference. It changes and it grows every year. One day is now going to be mental health specific, and the second day is going to be higher ed specific, so that you can come and stay for both days if you want to learn that information. But it's really important for mental health professionals to get an understanding of best practices when working with this population as well. Social workers, nurses, any type of clinician. Most of them at the VA, believe it or not, are not veterans that serve in the counseling capacity. And so they don't have an understanding of what the veteran has gone through. And there's mixed reviews on that. Some veterans don't want to go to a counselor unless they're a veteran themselves. Others will go. I think it just depends on the individual. But we provide this type of training so that we can get them up to speed a little bit and they can relate on certain issues with the veteran. Vet 100, we now have is there a freshman course that everyone has to take? Okay, so most universities, colleges have a freshman 1-credit introductory to college course. Ours is called Living Responsibly in an Interdependent World. My veterans know how to live responsibly. They don't need to come into a class to teach them how to live responsibly. They need to come into a class that teaches them how to be a student on a college campus. So we now have Vet 100. Vet 100 replaces University 100. It's only open to veterans. I teach the course with them. It's once a week, and it's a class once a week with their peers. So they're not in a class. They have one break a week where they're with other individuals who have gone through some of the same things that they've gone through. It's working. We're going to keep doing it. I show them how to register for classes. I show them how to use the library. And I don't do it on my own. I bring in speakers that teach them. I bring in the librarians, and that they teach them how to do library searches and database searches and things like that. Most high school students are doing that in high school. So when they're transitioning to college, they already have the background in it. But veterans no, they don't? Really? Okay. Well then, I'm glad you corrected me.
I'm not being cynical.
They really don't. Well, it's funny because our Vet 100 class, we brought the library in for one 1-hour session, and the students begged me to bring her back again for a 2nd hour. And they don't even bring them into University 100, so who knows then what's happening to the traditional. My veterans are probably, above the curve for that, but that's something that they want more information on. So we tailor it each year. So we take what we've learned from the year before to figure out how to make it better for the next year. So it's just something that's there for them once a week to get them to assimilate to campus a little bit easier. And that is mandatory for transfer veterans as well. So, and the reason why it's mandatory for transfers is because if a veteran is a transfer student at our university, even if they have military credit, well, if they have military credit, it's they went to certain schools while they were in the military and they were never actually on a college campus, or they were online school and they've never been on a college campus. So it's important, or they were at a different university 4 years ago and college has changed since then. So it's important to have all the veterans in that class together. Some of them do fight me on it, they don't want to do it, but I can usually convince them to think about it and to come into the class, and they usually like it. So we're doing that. Operation Chills for Troops, that was our fundraiser that we raised over $12,000 at. our second year running it, and it provides, we donate to an organization called Paws and Stripes. It's out of New Mexico. A great organization, so you might want to think about maybe running something similar. It's worked for us. For every $2,500 we raised, takes one shelter dog and one veteran with PTSD or traumatic brain injury, puts them through training so that shelter dog isn't a service dog for the veteran. So our goal was to raise enough to do 2. We raised enough to do 4. So VFWs, American Legions, reach out to your veterans organizations in the community. They rally around stuff like that. And we were able to do that, and that's exciting for us. Small little school, we raised $12,000. But it's exciting, and there's other things that you can be doing too. Our Vets, this is a program that we just started in the fall semester. Renewal Veteran Education and Transition Services. What this program does is it provides free math and academic writing courses to veterans in the community that are looking to go back to school, and they maybe just don't have the confidence in themselves to go back. That's one. Or they don't have the grades to go back to school. They didn't do well in high school, so they would have to go to a community college first in our area with Marywood's requirements. They'd have to go to a community college first, prove themselves, and then they could apply to the university at that point. Well, we don't want to tell somebody no based on something they did 15 years ago. It's not an accurate indicator of how they're going to do now. So we wanted to have another opportunity to evaluate them. They don't need to take SATs. Anyone over the age of 21 does not require an SAT or ACT score. So we would essentially be basing enrollment and admission off of high school transcripts or a GED score. Or they did college for 1 semester after high school and decided it wasn't for them, so they dropped out and went to the military. And then they were in a leadership position. They were an NCO and a non-commissioned officer in the Army. And they had 15 guys underneath them that they worked with every day. And they had millions of dollars of machinery that they were responsible for every day. They're now at a different level than they were 15 years ago. So this program is in place now. And I brought information on it, so feel free to come up at the end and take that. And it's completely free to the veteran. We can have up to 15 per semester. It's taught by volunteer faculty or community members that meet the credentials. 2 nights a week, 5:30 to 8:30 they meet. And I do have a slide on it later that you can kind of read a little bit more about it, but it's a brand new program and it's something that we really are proud of, and we want other schools to do things similar. And then our Veterans Day celebration and Flags for the Fallen. This is more information again about Beyond G.I. Joe. We want to strengthen participants' empathetic understanding of the veteran experience and strengthen their investment in veteran success within higher education in the community. That's the goal. We bring them in. We have a student vet panel that gets up at the end and can answer questions about all the information that these individuals received over the 2 days that they were there at the conference, and that kind of ties it all together for them. So we do different things like that, become more aware of differences that exist between the traditional college student and the student veteran. It's important to understand that these are it's a different type of student that's coming back to campus. That's a picture from last year's Operation Tales for Troops. We have a dog pageant, it's dog friendly, family friendly, and I think we had over 250 people come out this year. So it's a really great event, and businesses they like to get involved with stuff like that too. Our Veterans Day, Flags for the Fallen, and we also read off all the names as part of the Remembrance Day National Roll Call. That's out of Eastern Kentucky University. We did that the first year, we didn't do it last year. That's it. And we have a Veterans Appreciation Luncheon on campus now. First year we had 20 people show up to it, last year we had 55. So we're growing. It's really important to do things like that for your veterans to thank them for their service. This is more about the RVEDS program. It's now open to spouses as well. So veterans, we figure maybe if the spouse wants to go back to school, they'll say, let's both go back and take these free classes. Again, it's something that we've seen that our veterans need, is some type of bridge program to just make sure that when they come to campus, maybe they haven't had math or English in a few years. The curriculum was created by the math department and the English department on our campus. So it gets them more ready for school when they start. And they're a Marywood student for the 8 weeks that the class runs. So they get a student ID card, they can use the gym, the library, tutoring services, they get a free parking pass. So not only that, but after the 8 weeks, they've already assimilated back to campus in a sense because they've been there for 8 weeks. So if they're coming to school in the fall semester, They already were a student for 8 weeks in the summer or in the spring. And so that's what we're trying to build that up. They get a certificate of completion. So if, say, we have 2 veterans right now who we couldn't accept to Marywood for the fall. Their just grades weren't good enough. So admissions worked with me and we put them into RVETs. So now they're gonna graduate on May 15th from RVETs. We're gonna have a graduation ceremony for them. We wanna recognize what they've completed. And they're gonna take that certificate and they're gonna submit it with their application. And the school's gonna look at them differently. They're gonna get a letter of recommendation from the faculty that taught it, and the school's gonna look at them differently. Spring 2015 enrollment, we have 11 veterans, age range 22 to 72. We have a 72-year-old vet, he's part of Friends of the Forgotten and Rolling Thunder, and he just wanted to get out of the house 2 nights a week. There is no age restriction. It's been really good for the Vietnam vets who maybe haven't had that welcome home feeling because they had a total different transition than our current veterans, as you know. So they've been coming to campus, and it's been doing things for them too. So it's been interesting to see this grow. We're gonna keep doing it. And all the supplies are donated by Walmart. So there's no out-of-pocket cost at all right now, which also makes it hard to keep them in the program for 8 weeks sometimes. They'll hit the middle mark and they'll say, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. So we're trying to keep them motivated, and we're doing that through providing free tutoring services and things like that for them too. The honors program at the university is going to be working with them to be their tutors as a service project. And that's the website at the bottom there, marywood.edu RVETs. So we track office visits. That's how I propose an argument to get a house on campus and more space. Now this isn't office visits in the sense of everybody that walks through the door, because I wouldn't even be able to track that there's so many that come in and out. I don't know how Bob does it, I applaud him for it. This is who comes to see me and meet with me on a one-on-one basis. And my little pointer guy, 221 total office visits for 2013. Now, that's very skewed because if there's a crisis happening and a veteran comes in my office, I'm not going to say, please stop and fill out an office visit form and then continue with your crisis. So if there's ever any type of crisis, which there's probably a good 3 a week that happen in the office, I don't track that because there's really no way of me to track it because I'm trying to get them to where they need to be on campus, not worry about if they were in the office for 60 minutes or not. So some of the things they come for, financial aid issues, housing issues. We work with ROTC now on campus as well. A VA referral, they maybe are coming in for orientation, they have a FAFSA question. They come to me, then I get them to who they need to go to on campus. That's how that works. They can also come in and apply for benefits in my office through the VA as well. So that's how we're tracking it for now. Hopefully we'll get better. I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to make my work studies be bulldogs and say, no, you can't meet with her until you fill out an office visit sheet. But again, it just depends on the situation. It's very case by case. We have a mobilization policy. This is just to ensure that any of our veterans, I say veterans, that's a very all-encompassing word. Any of our reservist National Guard, in the most sense, because that's the ones that are going to be mobilized in PA, are not held responsible in a sense for having to be mobilized and leave school. We just want to make sure that there's a policy in place for them. And that's what that mobilization policy does. And they're designated as being on a military leave of absence rather than just a regular leave of absence. It's out of their control. So we don't want to put something in place that's going to hurt them for something that has nothing to do with them. It's out of their control. They're being told they have to mobilize. Community partnerships. We work with the VA very closely. We want to make sure we're well informed of all of the different changes that are happening so that we can inform our student veterans and then anybody else in the community that needs to know about these changes. We work with a number of different veterans organizations in the community too that helps with fundraising and social supports. And then we have a vet center. I don't know if there's a vet center around here. Berwick, okay. So the vet center